And in fact, we are going to make this pretty easy. You guys are going to do a great job with it. We're going to solve trigonometric equations. Instead of solving between 0 and 2 pi, we're going to use 0 and 360. Instead of working with radians, we're going to solve within degrees. Just much more application there, so we'll do that. It's pretty intuitive. How do you think I begin solving this trigonometric equation? Yep, 2 sine of theta is equal to -1. And then, so I get sine of theta is equal to -1/2. So again, the question is, what angle or angles would you plug in to make this equation true? Well, if we can simply solve that, that will tell us what theta should be. The way we start with this is we decide where is sine negative. And so when you get to this point, make sure you draw your quadrants. Can somebody tell me where is sine negative? The third and fourth quadrants. Sine is negative in the third and the fourth quadrants. So how many solutions do you think I'm going to have? I am going to have 2 solutions. And so in order to figure this out, this is what I call a reference angle. Do you remember when we made these 90-degree triangles in here? We did these terminal points. It's kind of the same idea in this situation. We build these things called reference angles. We're always going to write the angle between the x-axis and the terminal side. I know I told you before to always draw it to the x-axis, and you guys figured out, well, we can draw the y-axis, and it's no big deal. It will make a big deal right now, okay? So for the rest of our time moving forward, always make sure you're drawing against the x-axis. I take out my calculator, and anybody want to guess what I do to solve sine equal to -1/2? Sine inverse. Sine inverse, you don't need to use the negative. We've already used the negative to determine the lower 2 quadrants. So just type in 0.5. And as some of you guessed, we get 30 degrees. If you didn't get 30 degrees, what might be wrong with your calculator? Yeah, it might be sitting in radians. Okay, so we're going to use that to then compute my 2 answers. Can somebody tell me what my first answer is? How did you get 210? Yeah, you took that 180 and you added 30 on to get 210 degrees. And then my second one would be 330, or 30 minus 360, which is 330 degrees. And those are, in fact, my 2 solutions. Not too bad, huh? What's different about number 2? Yeah, in secant, let's just solve it the same and then deal with the problem when it occurs. We add the 13, -5 secant of theta is equal to 11. We divide by -5, so secant of theta is equal to -11/5. I don't have a secant button on my calculator. So what should I do? Very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it. If you flip secant, take the reciprocal, you get cosine. So cosine, if secant is -11/5, then cosine is -5/11. Well, that's not a problem for us. We can handle that. Do you guys remember what's the maximum value that sine and cosine can be? What's the minimum value? So can cosine have a value of -5/11? What if it ended up being cosine is 11/5? There would be no solution. So let's try that. Where's cosine negative? Which quadrants? The second and third quadrant. Very good. What do I type into my calculator? Cosine inverse of. Thank you. Do not use the negative. You've already used up the negative by determining the quadrants. Your calculator computes 62.96. Always draw your angle against the x-axis. Do not, yes. Thank you. Let's address it. We'll do it right now, okay? We're going to get to Hannah's question here. Watch what happens. I get this angle. How do I compute that angle? 180 minus 62.96. Can somebody tell me 117.04? Is that correct? Okay, and then how am I going to get then this angle here? 242.96. So Hannah had an excellent question. Let's make sure we address that right now. She said, what if you forget the negative? Here's the deal. It's good to not use the negative. If you do, there's still a way to kind of figure it out. If I take cosine inverse of -5 divided by 11, remember, cosine understands the difference between acute or obtuse. So it will actually find the 117 for you. But notice that, how do you find then the 242? See what I'm saying? That's why I like to come up with the 6296, because then I know how to find both of them. If I include the negative, then I only get one of them. See my point? Good question. All right. Set up the last one. Add, subtract the 5. -6 tangent of theta. Go get your brain food. Come on back. We'll pick up right at that spot. Yeah. She just needs to see the front part. Okay, so we subtract that. We get -8 divided by -6. Tangent of theta is equal to what? 4/3. So I draw my little diagram here. And where's tangent positive? Very good. 1 and 3. What do I type into my calculator? Tangent inverse of 4/3, and I get 53/13. So that means theta is equal to, that's 53.13. How do I find the next one? Add to 180, I get 233.13 degrees. What do you think? Well, it definitely gets a little bit more challenging. If I distribute the -3, -6 cotangent of theta, then what? +3 plus 3 is equal to 6, minus 2 cotangent of theta, minus 1. I could subtract 6 from both sides, right? Those will go away. Let's get rid of those. I could add 2 cotangent of theta to both sides. So add 2 cotangent of theta plus 2 cotangent of theta. So what do I have on the left-hand side? -4 cotangent theta is equal to, divide by -4 cotangent of theta is equal to 1/4. Now what? Tangent of theta is equal to 4/1. We are back to where we were in the previous example, where tangent is positive. Tangent is positive in the first and the third. Go to my calculator. Tangent inverse 4. We get 75/96. So my two angles are what? And okay, so you've seen excellent examples of what we call linear. Those are linear equations because it's to the first power. I should say linear form. We want to do 3 more problems though. 3 secant squared plus 1 is 12. What's different about that? It's squared. So you're going to see what happens. Number 1, we subtract the 1. Get 3 secant squared of theta is equal to 11. I divide by 3. Secant squared of theta is equal to 11/3. Now at this point you have 2 options. Anybody know? Square root or flip it. I'm going to choose to flip it first. Cosine squared of theta is equal to 3/11. And now you are correct. We do square root both sides. So I square root both sides. I need to be careful because when I square root something that has a variable, I need to list Yeah, so cosine of theta is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3 over 11. Now, I know that you have an 11 in the denominator and it's not rationalized, but you don't have to worry about that because that's not your final answer, is it? No. So we're just using it to find our final answer. The question is, where is cosine positive and where is cosine negative? Cosine is positive where? 1 and 4, and it's negative in the second and the third. So anybody want to guess how many answers you're going to have here? You will have 4 answers. I take out my calculator. Please make sure that you type it in correctly. Cosine inverse of the square root of 3 divided by 11. Close that parenthesis, and we get 58.52 degrees. So therefore, theta is, what's my first one? 58.52. How do I get the next one? And I get 121.48. Next one, I add 58.52 to 180. And I get 238.52. And then I subtract 58.52 from 360. And I'm going with a 301.48. Is that correct? 4 solutions here. What do you think? No. John asks an excellent question because he's a very intelligent and an esteemed individual. You're welcome. Oh. Oh. Well, for the record, we'll allow you to say something warm and fuzzy to John on the video. No. All right, gave the opportunity. We say no. All right, maybe Alex will.
John, you're a very esteemed and intelligent individual.
Oh, Henrik has something to say. For the record.
John, you're a very esteemed and intelligent individual.
Wow. Well, 3 people have said it, and it's on YouTube. It's true. Okay. The greatest minds of our time. Well, thank you. All right. All right. So the question was, if it's squared, it'll always have 4 answers, true or false. And the answer is false, but it's you got a good idea that you got a good shot at 4, maybe 1 more, 1 less, but you'll see why here. What's different about number 6? Yeah, you got a 2, and you got tangent and tangent, right? So if you don't know how to do the problem, just do the problem. Maybe find an easier one to do. Suppose you had an equation of 2x squared plus x is equal to 0. How would you solve that? Factor out an x. So we're going to factor out a tangent of theta, and you're left with 2 tangent of theta plus 1. Because you know how to factor. You're really good at that. Way to go. So I end up with 2 expressions. Tangent of theta is equal to 0. And then 2 tangent of theta plus 1 is equal to 0. So let's deal with the bottom one first. Tangent of theta equal to -1/2. Which quadrants am I focusing on? 2 and 4. I take out the calculator. And I tangent inverse -1/2 or +1/2? Positive, because you already used up the negative. 26.57. So I've got 180 minus, which is 153.43. And then you're going to subtract 26.57 off of 300. You get 333.43 degrees. So we've got two solutions, but what do I still need to kind of look at? Where tangent's equal to 0. Tangent is y divided by x. So which spots, if I take y and divide it by x, will I get 0? Everybody agree that here you'll get 0? Here you'll get undefined, 0, undefined, 0. So we have theta is equal to 0 degrees, 180 degrees, and 360 degrees. So John, you can see in this situation that you end up with 5. Last example, flip it over. Any thought what to do here? Last one, number 7. Give up? Excellent. What else? What if we didn't give up? Factor. Excellent. We will factor. 5 times the cosine of theta times the cosine of theta. We're going to factor it like a trinomial. 5 cosine times cosine is 5 cosine squared. Now I've got 4 on the end, so I'm either going to have 4 and 1 or 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. We know how this is going to work out. Plus 4, plus 1. Excellent work, both Alexes in tandem. Tandem Alex. Like tandem axles. I like that. All right. Oh, yeah. Cosine of theta is equal to -1. So that's the question. Where is cosine equal to -1? That means, is cosine the x value or the y value? X. Where is cosine? Where's the x value? -1. 180 degrees. And then finally, this one, this would be where is cosine of theta equal to -4/5, correct? Where is cosine negative? 2 and 3. Take out my calculator. And I cosine inverse 4 over 5. I get 3687. So what is that angle? 143.13. The next one is going to be 216.87. So back to John's question, as he is our very esteemed and honorable colleague, who is very intelligent. We have 3 solutions in that situation. Yes, you could have 1. So, fortunately for you, we do not have time to do your homework check. We'll do it at the beginning of class tomorrow. Good. Question. Infinite. So I would say that in our class, 6 would probably be the most.